Okay, folks, so today we're going to take a bit of a look together at the idea of Greek religion and specifically the role that Greek religion plays in terms of creating Greek society. So what values get brought up in through Greek religion, what sort of cultural norms, all of that good stuff. And we'll see, of course, a lot of similarities between Greek religion and Mesopotamian religion and Egyptian religion as well. So as we look at Greek religion, one of the biggest questions is, what is it exactly? Because their idea of religion is very different than our idea of religion. So we look at it in a number of ways. One of the most important things about Greek religion is that just like Mesopotamian religion and Egyptian religion is that there's no central canon. There's no canonical texts as they're called. There's no Bible, there's no Quran, there's nothing like that where they can just go to find the answers. So instead, yes, you have a series of myths, but we also have some other documents and some other archaeological finds and evidence that we can look at in terms of piecing together what Greek religion looks like exactly for the people of ancient Greece. So a lot of it, yes, is myth, but we also have a lot of ritual that we can look to figure out sort of what Greek religion really is. So one of the things that we look at is the idea of temples. And fortunately for us, we've got a lot more archaeological remains, though they do tend to be in ruins, from ancient Greece than we do certainly from Mesopotamia. We don't have many, freestanding ziggurats that we can still go to and walk around in. And yes, we've got some pyramids, but again, we don't have a lot in terms of Egyptian architecture that still stands. So we're lucky that we do have these temples that we can actually physically go to, ruins or not, in ancient Greece and learn from. So in ancient Greece, temples were places of worship, of course. So people went to them to worship their various gods. Every city, of course, had its own very significant god. So of course, the goddess of Athens was Athena. So they all had their own god. And just as with the cities that we've looked at in Mesopotamia and Egypt, when you were in that particular city, you could worship that god. But every home had their own gods to worship as well. Greek temples were also places of sacrifice. So we know this through inscription, we know this through visuals. We know that definitely ritual was part of that whole Greek idea of religion. And also they were part of city centers. So that obviously tells us that religion did play a very significant role. The fact that these temples were in such a prominent place in their city centers obviously means that they were important to the everyday lives of Greek people. So this is what we are familiar with today, whether we've been lucky enough to go there or not. I have not. I'm super jealous of the people who have. So you maybe have not, maybe you're going to, which would be great. But certainly this is what the temples look like to us today. So we can go there, we can explore, we can see where they would have been in the cities, but certainly we don't have what they actually would have looked like at the time. There are inscriptions, visuals like this, where you can see that obviously there was the idea of ritual, sacrifice, those kinds of things also as a part of religion in ancient Greece. Interestingly, though, this is what temples would have looked like in ancient Greece. So our typical visual of a temple is, of course, the ruined buildings. But even if we can visualize what they might have actually looked like in ancient Greece, we typically tend to think of Greece as being all white. Just like how we talked about with ancient Egypt, we tend to think of lots of sand. We don't think of gleaming white pyramids with gold tops. So in ancient Greece, actually, their temples would have had a lot of color to them. So this is a facade in front of some Greek ruins that are being fixed up. But you can see here that this is actually what the temple would have looked like. And we know this obviously through written records, which the Greeks, we've got a lot more written records from the ancient Greeks than we ever did from Egypt or Mesopotamia. And they described this idea of very, very colorful tops to their architecture. Also, in terms of that triangle at the top, you very often would have had descriptions or depictions in terms of visuals of major things that happened in the city or major things that the god or goddess was involved in. So again, very colorful. and the statues themselves would have been colorful as well. Again, we tend to think of Greek sculpture as being all white, gleaming white, beautiful marble, but actually they would have been very brightly colored, very brightly painted. A lot of people see these things and they're like, what? No, you're ruining my idea of ancient Greece. But actually this is what it really would have been like. So it's kind of interesting for us to sort of shift our perspective and think about Greece not as this gleaming white city, but as this white city with these amazing pops of color throughout. Another thing when we think about ancient Greek religion is oracles and divination. And we talked a little bit about this with the Persian Wars and the fact that Sparta, didn't want to come and fight at the Battle of Marathon with Athens because they needed to wait a full week until the full moon. So certainly they were very superstitious people. They believed in ritual and oracles and divination. To them, they saw death as necessary. It wasn't this kind of quest for immortality that we saw with Gilgamesh, but they did want answers about their future. So a lot of the divination and the oracles were about finding answers. Should I go to this battle, as the Spartans did? Should I wait? Will I win? Will I lose? What should I do in the future? What does my future look like? And so they would turn to several prominent oracles to find the answers. And you can see this in lots of depictions, lots of vases, this kind of classic sort of black and red painting on vases to see that this is obviously a gentleman who has come to an oracle, who's reading what looks like, maybe something like tea leaves in order to find the answers there. So often it would be a religious priest or priestess acting as a mediator between the man and the gods. If you've seen the movie 300, you have a very extreme depiction of a Greek priestess who is this very strange sexualized Greek oracle. Certainly that would not have been the case, but each oracle did have a very distinct method of divination. Some of them would look at the motion of certain objects, the movement of birds, rustling of leaves, dream interpretation, things like tea reading, also things like cutting open animals and reading their organs and their entrails and seeing, if you wanted to know, should I go to battle or not, and you cut open a goat and you found, sores or tumors on their organs, then obviously that was a sign that you should not be going to that particular war. Some of the well-established oracles were Zeus at Dodona and Apollo at Delphi, which is kind of the most prominent oracle probably for most people when they think about ancient Greece. And this is the site of the Oracle of Apollo at Delphi. So you can see this big kind of center circle where all of those oracular readings would have taken place. And then again, here you have the visual of a sacrifice. Again, looking for answers as to what the future is going to hold. Not looking for immortality, not looking for any of that, speaking with the dead or anything, but about looking for answers to the future. Another really big thing in ancient Greece that we know existed, but we don't know a ton about is the mysteries. And these are kind of mystery cults and mystery religions that existed. So they essentially were just that. They were cults and kind of secret societies. A lot of them were focused on salvation and looking for a happy afterlife, which a lot of Greek religion was not about. But the mysteries certainly focused on that. So if that was something that you were really looking for, something certainly that the Egyptians were looking for, but was not a focus for the ancient Greeks. If you were looking for that, you might enter a mystery cult or a secret society. Obviously, what happened in these mystery cults, what happened in these societies, was only revealed to the members who were initiated into the cults. There were lots of scandalous rumors about things that happened, though. Crazy orgies, murdering children, or like sacrificing children, sacrificing babies. Just the craziest of things, which probably none of which were true. But always when you've got these mystery cults, that's sort of the rumors that circle. In Athens alone, there were 600 mystery cults at one time. So this goes to show that obviously these did play a very prominent role in the lives of many Greek peoples in Athens, but also throughout the Greek city-states. they were very, very important. One of the most prominent mystery gods was Dionysus, and you folks are going to take a look at some of the Olympian gods a little bit later today, but certainly the cults of Dionysus, and Dionysus being the god of wine, obviously meant that there were lots of scandalous rumors about the kind of debaucherous drunken parties that the societies of Dionysus would be involved in. So this is kind of the visual, the idea that people had of what cults, these mystery cults and religions would have looked like. Very, very secret initiations, very secret rituals, and all of those kinds of goings on. Who really knows? We don't have a lot of information. The other part is mythology, and obviously this is the part that most people know and most people really like to look at. In terms of myth, we're really looking at a body or kind of collection of myths belonging to, in this case, the Greek people. They talk about their origins, their histories, their ancestors, and they were quite often passed down orally for a very long time before they were ever written. A lot of them try to explain where the earth came from, where humans came from, where gods came from, and explain really complex ideas. So in some of the myths that you're going to look at, I've selected a couple videos for you to look at. A lot of them do a combination of a few of these things. They will be an explanation for why something exists, an animal or a certain time period, time of the day rather, or a season. But along with that, they also teach a lot of really prominent lessons. So the first thing I want you folks to do is take a look at some of the Greek gods, and probably you're familiar with a lot of them already. Most people are with Greek gods, so I'm not going to go through them all with you. But here you can see the three generations of the Greek gods, starting at the top with Gaia and Uranus, the Mother Earth goddess, and then the god kind of the original god of the sky. They give birth then to the Titans. And the Titans are the really prominent gods who exist before they are overthrown by the Olympians. I've included a link to a video that kind of discusses the overthrow of the Titans by the Olympians. But certainly the Olympians are the ones who are prominent in Greek myth. Sometimes you will hear talk about some of the Titans themselves, all born from Rhea and Kronos. The Olympians all born from Rhea and Kronos. But really, most of the myths, when they're talking about gods, are centered around the Olympian gods. There are 12 main Olympian gods, but you can see here there's more than 12. Sometimes you will have Dionysus as part of the 12. Sometimes he's not considered part of the 12. Sometimes Hestia is part of the 12. Sometimes she's not part of the 12. So depending on the versions that you're looking at, you might see a few variations in terms of some of the gods and goddesses, but the kind of classic ones, Zeus, Hera, Aphrodite, Poseidon, Athena, those ones are kind of always in the mix. Hades sometimes as well is not typically or not always considered an Olympian because he is that kind of bad guy. He does get sent to the underworld, though he's actually not a bad guy at all. He's just kind of become that character because he is reigning over the underworld, which, if we remember from ancient Egypt, is not a bad thing at all. Osiris was a great guy, but certainly the Greek idea of Hades, as it unfolds later on in Greek myth, is much more closely connected to that idea of not quite a hell, but certainly that idea of kind of darkness and evil. So using the links that you have on your handout, explore some of the Olympians and then go on to explore some of the Greek myths that interest you, that might tell you something about what are the values and the cultural norms of ancient Greek society and culture. Okay, thanks guys.